Let me pull up my thing. And, oops. Just give me a sec. And, we don't need access because Kenny's not here. All right, Joe, I am rolling.
Josh Arnold, investment consultant, brings you Garage Logic podcast number 1646, October 24, 2025. 80 degrees, the record high on this day. That was in 1989. And chilly as 15 degrees on this day in 1887. Call Josh Arnold at 952-925-5608 for a free 48-minute consultation.
Hail the flashlight king.
And now, from the mayor's office above the boathouse on the east shore of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Chris Reavers manning Technology Corner, Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop, John Haidt in the newsroom, and of course, the rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Soucheray.
We have a woman in studio with us who wants to do something about fraud in this state. She also wants to run for governor, but we won't talk about that because we would doom her chances. Kristen Robbins. Kristen, I've never met anybody from Crookston.
You're kidding. You've never met Roger Moe?
Probably not in person. Was he Crookston?
Yes.
Never. I don't think I ever met Roger. I probably did, but I don't count him. So, Kristen Robbins from Crookston, and you are a House member.
Yes, I am.
And you have been for, since 5-6 years?
I'm in my fourth term, so I was elected in 2018.
Okay. And you, how did it come to be that you're the head of the House Fraud Committee?
You know, when the Democrats cheated in having a candidate who didn't win the Roseville seat because they didn't live there.
That's right.
We had to renegotiate the power sharing agreement. And as part of that agreement, we got the 2-year Republican Speaker, Lisa Demuth, and we got creation of the Fraud Committee.
And where does it stand right now? What are you making progress? Do you have great hopes for it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's the first time in the history of the legislature we've had an oversight body like this dedicated to looking at agencies, looking at fraud, trying to make sure agencies are running properly. And in our first year of the legislature, you know, we had hearings every week. I've continued the hearings monthly since we adjourned. So I'm the only committee currently meeting while we're not in session. And we continue to bring sunlight to this, highlight aspects of fraud that our staff is researching. We created a whistleblower portal. In the first month, we had 530 whistleblower reports. We're well over 800 now, and we're trying to get through them as fast as we can and get back to people. But that's really brought to light a lot of the fraud that we've been uncovering.
800 whistleblower reports from within state agencies.
Yes, well, from people in the agencies who work there, people in the counties who work there, but also people who are recipients or providers. So it's a broad swath of Minnesotans who want to tell us what's going on and clean up the fraud.
How do you think it came to pass that this all became so fraudulent? Joe Thompson, who you're familiar with, of course, I think he believes that every agency in some capacity is affiliated with fraud. How did this happen?
You know, I think it's an absolute failure of oversight and internal controls. Tim Walz has failed to provide leadership and hold agencies accountable, and they just have had the green light to shovel as much money out the door as possible instead of making sure it's spent effectively.
Did it precede Walz?
I think so, but I think under Walz, we've seen it just be magnified. So there are OLA reports going back to 2003 highlighting these problems. So it's always been a problem, I think, for quite a while. But the amount of money that came in during COVID and the amount of expansion of, especially in the Medicaid, Minnesota is an outlier in the number of extra services we provide. And those programs have very little oversight. And that's where a lot of the fraud has been.
Explain to us the difficulty in establishing the Inspector General position.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
What happened?
So we had broad bipartisan support to establish an independent Office of Inspector General within the executive branch, passed the Democrat-led Senate by a vote of 60-7. And then when it got to the House, the governor's staff and DHS staff testified against it. And that's why it died. And this is the agency where most of the fraud is occurring. So we absolutely have to get this done because the legislature, because of separation of powers, we can have all these hearings, we can pass bills, but we can't actually force the executive branch to change things. So we need a new governor and we need this independent Office of Inspector General to have independent authority to take action within the executive branch.
Is it an obvious conclusion to say they didn't want it because they all would have been found out?
I think it certainly is. Like, they do not want to be held accountable for what's going on inside the government right now. And we have to, and Joe Thompson's doing a great job. The feds have been a fantastic partner. So thank goodness for that. The federal partners are holding them accountable, but we have to do more at the state level.
It's beyond belief. I believe Joe Thompson believes this state is unique in this fraud.
Oh, absolutely. And Andy Lugar, former U.S. Attorney General, former U.S. Attorney here in Minnesota, who is a Democrat, said the same thing when he first started talking about it during the Feeding Our Future case. And
despite all this, and we got to be careful here because you're on Garage Logic and our record is very poor. You have thrown your hat in the ring for governor. What compelled that decision?
You know, partly it was tied to the fraud. So, I mean, I'm from Crookston, as you mentioned. I've been blessed to raise 3 daughters here, have my life and career here. But under Tim Walz, we have seen the state decline dramatically. The fraud is out of control. The fiscal responsibility is absent, taking an $18 billion surplus, raising taxes $11 billion, $6 billion deficit. Like, education test scores are terrible. Our kids are not being well educated. So of every measure that we used to have as like what Minnesota is about, we've been declining. And I thought, I looked at my colleagues in the race and I thought, we've got to have a governor who's going to get in there and reverse these policies. I'm so bullish on Minnesota. I love Minnesota and it's not too late to change it, but we've got to get in there and start reversing course.
Well, it needs a complete overhaul. When you guys are wandering around on the House floor and you're shooting the breeze, how is Walz regarded?
I would say
as a complete idiot, a stupid, incompetent, crook. How?
I mean, I would never want to speak for my colleagues.
Of course you wouldn't, no.
But I would say that mostly he's been AWOL. So
really? I suppose when he was running for VP, he was really gone.
Yeah, but even during session, I mean, I cut my political teeth way back in the day when Arnie Carlson was governor, and I worked on education reform with him. And Arnie was in the building in his maroon and gold every day.
The moth-eaten sweater.
Yes, the moth-eaten
It was
sweater.
moth-eaten. I can verify that. But he was in there buttonholing people, meeting people, calling people in for meetings, really working both sides of the legislature, making deals. And in my 7 years in the legislature, I literally have rarely seen Tim Walz.
Isn't that something? Whoa. What's he doing?
I have no idea.
He's changing that air filter in that pickup truck.
It's truly amazing. You went to Bethel.
Yes.
And then you went to Washington University in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And you have a master in economics. What have you done as a career in your life?
So right out of college, I worked on Capitol Hill in D.C. for 3 years. I was a legislative director for a member of Congress, and that's how I met my husband. We've been married 32 years. And then we both did our degrees. I worked briefly, as I mentioned, for 2 or 3 years on education reform when we moved back to Minnesota. I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, which was the best. Mm-hmm. And then I knew former Congressman Mark Kennedy and Tim Penny. Mm-hmm. And when they retired from public life, they wanted to start a group focused on Minnesota's competitiveness. So I started and ran the Economic Club of Minnesota, and I did that until I was elected.
Okay. Have you ever worked in the private sector?
I consider the Economic Club was a nonprofit, but it was really focused on the private sector.
It wasn't a government agency.
No, it was not.
Right.
No, and it was very working with our business community and small businesses to focus on policies that would make us more competitive.
Is the business community in Minnesota healthy right now?
I would say they're struggling. So we have great bones. We've had great companies come here, but with all the new regulations on companies and with the, honestly, complete outlier tax policies, they are struggling here. And I'd say most of the companies are not reinvesting here. So if they've been historically headquartered here, they're not expanding in Minnesota for the most part. They're expanding elsewhere.
What would you say to them if you were governor?
I would say we're going to right this ship so that we can be competitive. We need to have our tax policies competitive for companies, but also for workers. We are an outlier on personal income tax, on corporate tax, on pension tax, on Social Security, on estate tax, on capital gains tax, on any measure of taxation that would incentivize investment in Minnesota. We are losing. Same with attracting talent to Minnesota. But we can change that. And we need to grow the economy. We need investment and we need talent to come here. And that's what we need to focus on. Because right now we are driving people out of this state.
The $18 billion surplus, it got spent.
Yes.
That essentially did nothing except create the responsibility on the part of the taxpayers to now fund an additional $18 billion every 2 years. Because that $18 billion wasn't a one-time situation. It created programs, did it not?
Yes.
It created programs that now must be funded. The government got too big.
Absolutely. The government grew from a $52 billion budget to a $72 billion budget in 2 years. I mean, we said at the time, this is bonkers. It is completely unsustainable. We cannot have a 40% growth in the state. The economy's not growing 40%.
No.
The workforce isn't growing 40%. Like it was, a sandcastle.
I should mention you represent what area? Maple Grove and
Western Maple Grove and all of Corcoran, Medina, Greenfield, Independence, Loretto, and Maple Plain.
yeah, I was out that way last weekend. That's a long way out on the metro.
It is. It's on the metro. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Don't you love my district? I love it.
I do. I went on a leaf peeping tour, but I never saw any leaves because I never got off Highway 55 all the way to Annandale, where I was supposed to meet up with some other cars, and it's a long story, but I hadn't been out that way in ages. It's really growing.
It is, yes.
I mean, the housing developments are just incredible. Which amused me as I drove by them, because when they get knocked down by a tornado, climate change will get blamed. But I would point out they weren't there 100 years ago or 50 years ago. You will continue to serve in the House.
Yes.
And then when in seriousness does the governor's race begin, do you think?
Well, I think it's on right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very engaged. I'm going everywhere. Tonight, we're going to Mankato. I'm trying to get all over the state to meet people and talk to voters. But the formal process, precinct caucuses, start February 3rd.
And Kendall Qualls, we know, is a good man.
Yep.
You're up against Kendall. I believe Scott Johnson is running again.
Scott Jensen.
I'm sorry, Jensen. But you bring a real fresh look to this. You have not run before. You're deeply involved with the fraud situation. In fact, you're on top of it, it would seem. You're there. You get to see it. And there's more coming down the line in terms of fraud.
Absolutely.
How much will fraud dominate the upcoming legislative session?
I think it's going to be one of the top issues. When I'm out talking to voters, they are so fed up with their taxpayer money being stolen. And I mean, people have had it with the fraud and also with, the lack of affordability. So on the one hand, we've had billions of dollars stolen, but people's taxes were raised $11 billion. Mm-hmm. So Minnesotans are so frustrated about that. Minnesotans want to have good government, and they feel like that value proposition has just been broken.
It's hard for me to imagine, given what people know or should know, that Walz could even be a serious contender. I think he just shows a lot of nerve even running again. I think he's been outed as not national fodder, so he's sticking to what he does here. But this state can't afford to elect a guy that has presided over this.
Right, because if we don't get a new governor, we are not going to be able to change the fraud. Like, he has shown no interest in holding people accountable. They keep rearranging the deck chairs over there at DHS and not firing anyone. And we have to have new leadership that gets rid of the changes the culture. So it's a no fraud, no excuses culture where we stop just shoveling money out the door.
That's the right term. It seems it requires such a major shift in the environment there that people have to get fired. They have to be held accountable. They have to get serious about what they're doing. And I just don't see any of that under him.
No.
And as you pointed out, which alarms me, you don't even see him. He's not around. He should be in there.
He's like a sales guy around here.
Yeah. Especially on Friday.
Especially on a Friday.
But, I mean, he should be in there like Arnie, hectoring people and trying to work both sides of the room and try to get something done. And was he ever capable of that in your experience?
I have not seen it. So I've always served in the minority until this last session when we've been in a tie. But there was certainly no effort to reach out that I saw. The only time I got invited to the governor's residence was as a freshman. We got to go. It was a thing for all freshmen. But my understanding from the most recent couple of classes of freshmen is they haven't been invited. So I don't know.
Really. Kristen Robbins, we thank you.
Can I ask a two-part question
yes,
very briefly?
Yes,
So,
and then I have an invite for Kristen.
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
I have a two-part question for you. With the fraud, what role should Keith Ellison have played, and what role should he not have played with all of this? And the other thing I just thought of is we played a clip from you guys a week or so ago talking about voting, and you were heading up that discussion, and that spurred a lengthy discussion on this show. What role does the lack of transparency with voters in this state play in addition to the fraud as well? Yes. And how trustworthy is that process?
Okay, so first the Keith Ellison question, because they're very different questions. First of all, the Attorney General does have a special Medicaid fraud control unit, and they have done some work helping with the prosecutions that Joe Thompson is doing. Okay. But they're late to the party. So I have whistleblowers and I have emails where people have told me repeatedly they reached out to DHS, they reached out to the Attorney General, were totally ghosted, and nothing happened. It was only when the feds got involved that then they quickly tried to say, oh, we're helping and we're providing documentation, we're helping. But my understanding from the whistleblowers I talked to is that they repeatedly reached out and didn't get any traction. Wow. And so I think there's a lot more that an attorney general can and should be doing to partner with us on stopping the fraud.
And then the voting part of that as well.
Yes. So the hearing we had looked at how there had been guilty pleas in federal court for between 500 and 600 fake voter registrations last summer. And this just somehow didn't hit the news. So we wanted to talk about it because there's this sense from the Secretary of State that there's no voter fraud in Minnesota. Well, here we had 500 to 600 fake registrations in federal court, and no one was talking about it. So we wanted to know what happened to those fake registrations. And we were told they got sent to 13 different counties, but the counties weren't identified, and that not all of them led to voter records being created, but some did. And so I wrote a follow-up letter to the Secretary of State trying to find out what happened to all of those 500 to 600 fake registrations. How many of them are in the system as challenged? And why are they still in the system? Why aren't they deleted? But that leads to the larger question. Like, they are supposed to be monthly cleaning up our voter rolls based on reports on death from Social Security and based on people who move from DPS. And that monthly churn doesn't seem to be happening. And so we have reports of people who get, voter ballots or registrations from people who have been deceased for years. So we need to understand why they're not being cleaned up. The feds have asked for the Secretary of State to provide that information to the federal DOJ. They're stonewalling. They're in a court case over it. So if our rolls are so clean, I don't know why they're not just turning it over.
Will you come back with us when the fireworks hit in the fraud committee when the session starts?
Of course.
We've been talking about it on this show for 5 years, and I would like to see it get solved, and I take it so would you, obviously.
Absolutely.
And so we'll count on that, right?
Excellent.
We might as well plug your event in Mankato. Where are you going to be tonight?
We're doing a Republican women's bowling event. I honestly don't know where we're
Sweet.
That's thrilling.
No, the bowling alley. I used to live in Mankato.
What's it called?
Well, it's the one that's right off 169, right? Yeah, that place is sweet.
What is it called?
Yeah.
Wild Zone.
Wild Zone?
Yeah.
It's
You want to
crazy.
go? Joe, let's go
Zone.
bowling.
Wow Zone.
It's
Wow
wild.
Zone.
Wow Zone.
You want to go
Wow
bowling
Zone.
tonight, Joe?
Nice.
No, it's
Wanna
a
come
woman's
bowling?
event.
Oh, that's
it's a,
true.
It's a woman's event.
But all the gubernatorial candidates are going to be there, so
Oh, really?
there will be guys there. So
All right.
you're
Let's go.
welcome.
It'll be fun.
And then we can go to the hockey game. It'll be fun.
I have a thing.
Let's
I
make a
have
date.
a,
If you want a good burger, go to the 505 on Front Street.
Excellent.
It's awesome.
That's what we're doing for dinner
What
tonight,
about the
Marissa.
Lions Tap? Wait a minute.
That's in Eden Prairie.
That's not in Mankato.
It's on my way down there.
No. Kristen Robbins, thank you very much.
Thank you all
We'll be
very
back.
much. Look forward to it.
Here's a man who spends hours in hardware stores, sifting through the nuts and bolts of life. Joe Souchere.
Turn that up. That's what I'm talking about. Say, take it down. Say, don't let those leaves blow through your garage door. You might have some problems with your current garage door. She might be acting up and making a lot of noise. You can book a noisy door tune-up special with Precision Garage Doors. If you need a new door, Precision Garage Doors is offering GLers $100 off right now on a single door, $200 off on a double door. They have models for every budget. They send out a garage door designer. You get to shoot the breeze about that, figure the whole thing out, increases the value of your home, saves energy, provides better security. But as I say, if you like your door but she's acting up now, get it taken care of before winter with a 25-point safety inspection and diagnostic. Get ready for cooler weather ahead. Annual maintenance will keep you from stumbling out there when it's 10 below and try to figure out that door. Book online at precisiondoormn.com or call 612-263-6985 to schedule your free on-site new door estimate with Precision Door or book the Noisy Door Special. I'm going to look forward to talking to Kristen Robbins during the legislative session because I'm choosing to believe she wants to get to the bottom of the fraud.
Yeah. And it's always interesting to watch someone, the information they give you, when you can kind of tell they know more, but they're being cautious about what they're willing to divulge.
I don't want to say a great deal about her run for governor. Why do that to her?
Yeah, we don't want to jinx her.
Because I want her to have a chance, and we don't want to be seen as the...
But how about the fact that all of these whistleblowers tried to go to Ellison, and they were just ignored?
Yeah, well, he's
He's
if you got a mop that doesn't work, he might be interested. But
or if you've got a woman trying to open up a coffee shop during COVID, he'll go after her.
We mentioned an Omar Fateh story yesterday that, as predicted, came out today in the print version of the Minneapolis paper, a front page story that says, the headline of which is "The Fierce Urgency of Minneapolis mayoral candidate Omar Fateh." I don't understand I just don't understand what his fierce urgency is.
Yeah, and the story doesn't indicate there's a fierce urgency of any sort.
But the story does contain something extremely interesting. Well, it's all interesting. It's interesting to me, and it's really not been ferreted out, that he got here and instantly had this meteoric rise and a succession of jobs, and the next thing you know, he's in the legislature. But talking about voting, questions about elections would continue to fall. I'm just picking this out from the middle of the story. It's a long story. Yet questions about the election would continue to follow Fateh after he took his seat. This is the seat where he defeated Jeff Hayden to get in the legislature, especially after the FBI began looking into allegations of voter fraud. The federal investigation issued on misuse of the absentee ballot agent delivery process, in which elderly or ill voters can have a friend, family member, or someone else that they designate deliver their ballot to an election office. In the end, one person was charged with wrongdoing, Muse Muhammad Mohammed, who had volunteered for Fateh's 2020 campaign. Mohammed was eventually convicted of lying to a federal grand jury after he testified that he was asked to deliver absentee ballots for several workers in the 2020 primary. After Mohammed was convicted of perjury and Fateh's Senate DFL colleagues called on him to address the case, Fateh disclosed that Mohammed was, in fact, his brother-in-law.
Oh.
Fateh had previously told DFL leadership he had no relationship with him.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Omar Fateh is a serial liar.
Yes, he is.
And does that process still exist, the agent delivery process of voting? Can you check on that for me?
Check.
Because
sure.
that's outrageous. So a guy goes through an apartment building
or a nursing home
and says, "Hey, I got you."
Who do you want?
What a bunch of BS this is. Now, if that continues, Omar's your next mayor.
Yep.
Because there's no way that they wouldn't flood the...
And the ballots have already been sent out because the early voting process has begun and is well underway.
Voting is... When the great book is written. Voting will prove to have been among the leading downfalls of this country. And do we have, John, a agent delivery process?
We do. To vote there, you have to be involved in this. You have to be a patient in a hospital,
Sure.
a residential treatment center or nursing home, a resident of a group home, battered women's shelter, or assisted living facility, a voter with a disability, or a voter with an incapacitating health issue that makes getting to the polls difficult.
I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of Minneapolis, that will be your downfall.
What does that tell you? Who are
That
they
tells